So
Right.
Bengals just feel like they're kind of going up and down on this roller coaster for the 2025 season. I don't really know what to expect with this Bengals team. So I don't know what's happening.
Lately, it's been just down. We're like on the Millennium Force, just off the top hill, just straight down. But we've got a plan to change that, and that plan, his name is Joe Flacco. So
Mm.
he was with the Cleveland Browns. He's obviously played for the Baltimore Ravens, and now he's the Cincinnati Bengals. So Joe Flacco, they want him to start on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers. So I guess before we get into the details of such, Chus, what are your initial reactions to hearing that Joe Flacco is now a Cincinnati Bengal?
Well, there was a couple of different things that went through my mind when I first heard it. First of all, I thought it was fake when I first read it because to see an AFC, you just don't hear about it too often. You don't hear a lot of times about a division rival trading with another division rival, especially in mid-season. I mean, for better or for worse, I mean, Cleveland and Cincinnati are trying to improve each other while, I mean, as you make the argument, the AFC North is wide open. So under that circumstance, why would Cleveland want to help Cincinnati's chances of winning the division is what I thought, if Cincinnati has an actual chance to win the division. Point being is that I genuinely thought it was fake, but then I realized I wasn't looking at an NFL spoof page. I was actually looking at the real NFL page, and I was like, okay, whatever, sure. Second of all, I saw you mention it in a reel on a YouTube short that you posted. I'm surprised it didn't reach out to Russell Wilson or reach out to the Giants about Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston. I mean, nothing against Joe Flacco, but I mean, I felt like those two guys could have been, and we've talked about it on the show with Stan, and I just think that those guys could have been possibly better options than what you have. I mean, Joe Flacco is pretty consistent in some aspects, but he definitely done with Cleveland as well as what he's done with Indianapolis, and he has those up and down games, and especially with his age in comparison to some other quarterbacks with their age and stuff, it always hits different quarterbacks differently. I mean, granted, was Joe Flacco always in the best system? No, not necessarily. I mean, Baltimore obviously was probably his arguably best system, but I mean, now going to Cincinnati, he has a powerful wide receiver duo plus wide receiver depth. I mean, the running backs. I mean, if he can get them involved in the offense one way or another. I mean, Chase Brown is a very solid running back, and I mean, he has the weapons to usually. I mean, but he has the weapons to work with, more or less, on the offense. Now, there are some concerns with it. There's a lot of concerns with it. Like I said, I still think Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson would have been a better option, but I'm eager for you to see how it plays out for the rest of the season since we're only in week 6.
Yeah, so the Cincinnati Bengals are 2-3. And those 3 losses have all come with Jake Browning starting the last 3 weeks. The face of a broken man in his press conference. That was after the not after the Lions game, but I forget which game was before that. I've blocked them all out from my memory due to the pain.
Or was it?
No, Vikings was his first start, whatever the in-between game was. But anyway, I think
Broncos.
The Broncos. That's okay. Yep. I blocked it completely from my memory. But we talked about how the Bengals needed to do something. And the Bengals needed to decide what they were doing this season. Whether they were tanking or if they sincerely believed that Joe Burrow is coming back this season. We talked about this 2 weeks ago, I think, 2 episodes ago. And if you sincerely believe, if the doctors in the stadium, if the doctors outside of the stadium, if everyone you've talked to has said, hey, Joe Burrow will be able to come back this season. If you guys are still a viable playoff team in December, Joe Burrow will be your guy. Then you have to do something. And to me, this is the Bengals silently telling the world, we firmly believe Joe Burrow will be back in December. We firmly believe that we need to be in playoff contention in December when Joe Burrow returns. And Jake Browning just was not getting it done. I really thought, and I really do believe Zach Taylor believed in Jake Browning, because that 2023 run made you think Jake Browning was a viable quarterback. But he just was causing too many turnovers. And I was thinking about this a few nights ago. The Cincinnati Bengals lost to the Lions by 13 points. That's 2 possessions. The turnover margin in that game was 2. Because Jake threw 3 interceptions, and then Trey Hendrickson forced a fumble off Jared Goff. So the net turnover margin for the Cincinnati Bengals, or for the Detroit Lions, was 2. And that's how many drives they lost by. The defense did, at one point during the game, step up, and they started forcing the Lions to go 3 and out, play poorly. Like, they were playing well. Now, obviously, it's a different game with Joe Flacco, and it's a different game with Joe Burrow. And I'm not saying that the Detroit Lions automatically lose that game if Jake Browning isn't in, but I do think it's notable that the amount of points that the Lions scored over the Bengals was the amount of possessions that they were handed by Jake Browning on stupid interceptions. Like, they weren't even like, oh, I understand how he could have done. They were just like mind-boggling. One of them, it was like he just decided he needed to throw the ball, so he threw it to Alex Anzalone. For some reason, he was like, oh, he's there. And Alex Anzalone was just like, okay, thank you. But overall, this trade, it was a shock to me too, because I didn't even know Joe Flacco was an option, because he was in the AFC North, like you said. There are still fans that are saying they should have talked to Kirk Cousins. That wasn't an option.
I don't agree with that, but
terrible, because his contract was so big, and yeah, that was never going to be an option. However, I do agree that Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston both should have been called. Russell Wilson would have been my favorite to get it. I know a lot of people really like Jameis Winston too, and that's fine. It doesn't matter anymore because Joe Flacco is. I guess it never actually said the full trade details, and I think they're actually kind of interesting. The Bengals acquired Joe Flacco in a 2026 6th-round pick for Cincinnati's 2026 5th-round pick. And I think that 5th-round pick is interesting, because we've talked about how the Cleveland Browns, if Dylan Gabriel works out, and we're going to talk about Dylan Gabriel a little bit longer here, they had a really, really good draft, probably the best this year, with Mason Graham, Carson Schwessinger. You had Dylan Sampson, Dylan Gabriel. If your worst pick ends up being Shedeur Sanders, guess what round Shedeur Sanders is in? The 5th. They just got that pick back, basically.
Yeah.
In their minds, I think. Now, the other criticism I've seen of this, Joe Flacco is going to die behind a bad offensive line. Cleveland has a terrible offensive line. They have injuries on their line, and they are not much better, if not worse, than the Cincinnati Bengals O-line. So he's already used to that. Does the Cincinnati Bengals offense with Joe Flacco scare you more as a Steelers fan than it does with Jake Browning at all?
Well, coming from a Steelers fan, I feel like we have bad luck against Joe Flacco in every way, shape, and form. So anytime that we have to play Joe Flacco, I'm not really looking forward to it. So I would say yes on that circumstance. But also, coming from a division rival, no matter who's in the backfield, I feel like it's going to be difficult. I probably would say that I was way more confident with Jake Browning going in there. My dad and I, Tom, shout out Tom, friend of the show. We talked about this before the trade actually happened, and we had mentioned that knowing the Steelers locked Dylan Gabriel would have a bad game on Sunday or get hurt or something, and Joe Flacco would go in and somehow lead Cleveland to victory in the first win in Cleveland Browns history in Acrisure Stadium since the conception of the team, or however long it's been. 2001, I think, was the last time they won here. We figured that would be our luck because Joe Flacco just seems to have had our number over the last couple of years. Maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe it just doesn't. Maybe he has a losing record, but nonetheless, it just feels that way. So coming from a Steelers fan, I would just say, yeah, just under that circumstance. Now, with the team that we have, I'm confident that we'll be able to hold our ground. Now, granted, we don't really do very well on Thursday Night Football. At least in the last couple of years, we haven't really seemed to have succeeded in Thursday Night Football games, no matter who's in the backfield or whatnot. And since it's away, it definitely doesn't help. So it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out on Thursday against the Bengals. But yeah, I'd say I'm a little bit more nervous now with Joe Flacco in there, but I don't think I've lost confidence in my team, more or less.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't really know how to feel. I do feel more comfortable with Joe Flacco as the quarterback than I do Jake Browning at this point. And I feel bad for Jake Browning because he was a hero in 2023, and now he's like public enemy number 2 behind Zach Taylor. But there were also rumors that they talked to Drew Lock, who's in Seattle.
Interesting.
They also he's with the Eagles now. I couldn't find a photo of him with the Eagles. Drew Lock, Sam Howell, who's now with the Eagles, also a target of the Bengals. So if those are your options, and we're not contacting the Giants for some reason, yeah, Joe Flacco is the one I'm going with for obvious reasons. He went up.
He's got that experience.
Yeah, 12 years ago or whatever.
He's got that experience. It doesn't matter. He's got that experience.
That's true. But he does have knowledge of John Harbaugh, which is good. Granted, that was however many years ago. He has knowledge of the Browns, obviously. And he has knowledge of the Green Bay Packers, who the Bengals play this Sunday. And he just played as a Cleveland Brown. He's also already played, I believe, the Ravens once this season. Yeah, he played the Ravens. They played like week 2 or something. Yeah, mm-hmm. So he's already seen that team that's struggling. So he does have some knowledge to bring to the table, and I think he also brings in a voice of leadership that the Bengals need that Zach Taylor isn't necessarily providing to these young guys, and really, you just needed someone who isn't going to throw a ton of interceptions and can get the ball on a regular basis, kind of like what you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So I'm not like over the moon about this trade. I'm not like I think I'm just more still like shell shocked by it at this point because I think Adam Schefter said it's like the 3rd trade in division since 1980 involving a quarterback or something like this never happened.
It's a weird thing. That's why I didn't think it was real. I was like, this is just not like this. Like I said, I genuinely thought it was a spoof, but it was real, and it very much is going to be coming to reality on Sunday. So
yeah, we'll see if they win on. Just a heads up, if they win on Sunday, I will be declaring all quarterbacks for the Bengals in the future be named Joe. We'll have no other quarterbacks. But yeah, that's just kind of my initial thoughts. It's kind of hard to wrap my mind around until we get to see him actually play as a Bengal.